Hi, Chef Craig here from Farm to Table. We were just out yesterday to Kipling Ridge Farms and got to spend some time with James Morin and his wonderful family, and also picked up some brisket. It's already expertly trimmed the way we got it. I've already seasoned it. This is a fairly common seasoning. Ready cure. Basically, you want 20 grams of this for every kilogram of meat. You can run that brine, is what it's referred to, for 24 hours and it'll have some pretty good penetration, especially on a cut like brisket, because as you can see, it's got a lot of permeation, a lot of open musculature, so it's not going to be overly difficult for that brine to permeate. So that was 60 grams worth of curing salt and just cold water. So you melt the curing salt in hot water once it's sort of dissolved in, and then you add some ice to it to be able to cool it down. You don't want to put hot water over top of your meat. You want it to already be cooler, at least room temp. And I've got a spice blend here of allspice, juniper, black peppercorn, and a little wee bit of onion and garlic. And we're just going to give that a good coat. I've already got a good 20-minute start on the smoker to get it up to temperature. I did this last time with a little bit of mustard to help with sticking the spices, and was just curious as to whether it was really a necessity to bother with the mustard. It's typical to just use straight dry spice, and you get a good coating on all sides, just like so. And we'll flip that over. A lot of this seasoning is going to fall off as you move it around. So don't count that all of it's going to be there, and it's just going to help with building what's called bark, the smoky outer ring around the meat. There, that's plenty. So that, we're going to give it a few minutes, and we'll put that on the smoker. We'll be right back to get the rest of the menu together, and we're going to be putting together a pasta. We're heading outside to take a look at the brisket on the smoker. That's all there is to it. Just you got your seasonings here, and you can see the way that it's set up. I've got it on smoke. We're going to flick that up to medium. We're already running a temperature now of about 175, and that's going to climb up to about 225 over the next 15-20 minutes. And we're going to try to keep it pegged there about 3 hours. Now, managed to get these beautiful black oyster mushrooms from Ugly Barn Farms. It was really nice going to meet them and taking a look at their operation and seeing the way they do things. So these black oysters, I'm going to be using them in a continuation of what we started with the brisket. We're going to be making a tagliatelle. So I'd say a broad, maybe 5 to 7 millimeter wide pasta, kind of going on like a different vibe for beef stroganoff. And I'll be using a recipe from this book, which is not so much a secret anymore. All right, so we are going to assemble the pasta now. So I've got 6 egg yolks, free range chicken eggs, and the recipe is also calling for 4 whole eggs. So there we got 3 and then the 4th. So whenever a recipe for pasta is asking for additional yolks, the person who formulated the recipe wanted to have something richer, a little bit more pliable, a little bit better protein content, but I think it's primarily going to be about the fat content. So we've got 550 grams of George Posh's unbleached white flour. That goes in first. Create a little bit of a well, and you're going to want your 1/4 teaspoon of salt, sea salt. Then you're going to go in with your yolks, 2 tablespoons worth of olive oil, 1, 2. Now we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the eggs in. This is going to take 30 seconds, as much as 45. You'll be able to tell when you see everything start to gather up on the sides and come together as a cohesive ball. And we're going to transfer that into a bowl, and we're going to work it for a few minutes. It's going to take a little bit of effort to get this together. It'll be worth it in the end, because you're going to need to be able to ensure that it's got a consistent amount of moisture throughout. So you're going to need this for about 5 minutes. Here it is together. You can see we've got really good cure, really good smoke, some fat rendering out. Pick this big guy up, bring this all inside, and we'll show you how we do the wrap. Here's the beef wrap. So we've got the brisket. Get that over here. This is the step that you want to do when you see that you figure you've got enough smoke and you don't want it to get any drier. You see that things have come together nice. You've generated a little bit of what could be considered bark. I'm never really terribly critical about that. I just want to see that I've got enough flavor built in, and I don't want to start losing moisture. And that's where doing the wrap is really going to start to help out with controlling moisture loss. So I've got 2 pieces, and I'm going to do some foil. And this, fine to just put it right into the pan like so. If you wanted to, you could put it directly onto the oven racks as it is. I prefer, if there is a small tear or a weak spot in the foil, it does happen, and I don't want to have this make a mess all over the oven. I've got it set at 225. Now it's off to the oven to do a 4-hour tour. It should look somewhere between Montreal smoked meat, corned beef. That's what we're going for, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. So we're making some fresh pasta. Here's what one of the sheets I just made a moment ago looks like. It smells wonderful. It feels like it's going to really hold together well in the cooking process. So what I was just doing is, when you do roll out the pasta the first time, it starts out, ends up about double that, about down to here. I cut that into 4 separate pieces, and then I roll it out till it gets down to about a 1/2 inch. We'll even go a little wee bit thinner. And you do want to try to see if you can have some way of starting out where the sides aren't too torn. You can see it's mostly smooth. Depending on your pasta machine, there's going to be different settings. And so this I'm going to put through on the first setting, which is setting number 1. So I'm going through all the different settings right now. We're up to the 3rd setting. There we go. We're at setting number 5. We're going to take it up to level 7 on the next one. There we go. And that would make a really nice ravioli as well. So I've got the pasta sheets rolled out, and I've got the water started. You want the water to be salted to taste like the ocean. I'm going to take some of this semolina and just spread it, and we're going to do that on each layer. Just a little bit. You don't need to put tons of it there. A lot of it is going to end up getting lost into the water. What we're doing is we're trying to keep everything from sticking together. Water's coming up to temp, and what I'll do now is, sheet by sheet, you can either just lay them on top of each other and use a large chef knife and use that to slice into noodles. I'm going to go 2 sheets, and we're going to just roll that up. I'm going to go for about like so, for width. Some of the edges might get a little wee bit rough, like you've got right here. That's okay, it's rustic. So nice dry bowl, put another sprinkle at the bottom of your semolina, and if everything's been done correctly, you should be able to just unravel that. If your pasta machine has the ability to cut tagliatelle right off the bat, great, go for it. It's a little bit easier, but holds together. It's not that delicate. Just about got the water up to temp. I can hear it starting to talk to me. I'll get these the rest of the way apart, and then we'll show the cooking process. It happens real quick. So we're just going to prep the rest of the ingredients now to be able to make the sauce. It's pretty basic. So yesterday we were putting together the brine and setting up the brisket for smoking. We've got a little bit of the finished product right here. You can kind of see the pinkness and the cure and the smoke, the way it sets in. It makes something called a smoke ring. You don't just put it in the fry pan and saute it. Brisket, you might want to smoke that as many as 4 or more hours, and then maybe wrap it and finish it in the oven for another 3 to 4 hours. Once that's taken care of, you let it cool in its own juices, and then you slice it the following day. So right now, we've got the pan. Let's get that warming up. Medium low. What we're doing right now is we're setting up to put together a basic cream sauce. So I'm going to cut some garlic, slicing it nice and thin, and we'll get some olive oil. Let's get that garlic started. Turn that up to medium now. Some mushrooms. We've got a couple of creminis. We've got this cooking onion. Let's get those sliced up. The noodles that we cut are here, and I'll give you a close-up on that. Nice and wide. And I like the aesthetic of having the onions be about the same width as the pasta. And what I'm doing right now is I'm cutting down to the center of the onion. And that's going to allow me to make some nice thick slices. There we go. Let's get these in here with the garlic. Okay, we don't want it to brown very much, so I'm going to temperature control the pan by putting the onion in there. I do like to wait just a little bit before getting salt into the pan. Salt has the ability at times of creating almost a pickling effect. Then you end up with a crunchy onion. I would like the onion to be nice and tender. What I'm going to do now is I have a little bit of the broth from the brisket, and I'm going to add some of that. So I had put about 2 ounces worth of reduced beef stock that I had used to cool the brisket. And right now what I'm trying to do is separate some of the smaller black oyster mushrooms that we got from Ugly Barn and just break them apart. And I don't like to cut the mushrooms. I like to tear them apart and let them try to go texturally with what I tried to achieve with the Tagliatelle noodles. But just about enough for what we're doing. There's some smaller ones that you get along the side here. Just let them be their own. And I'm going to add a couple of creminis. The one that got away. I can see now that the stock has just about reduced out of the pan, and that's fine. I'm going to make sure everything gets moved around. That is a nice time to be adding the mushrooms, which we have here, so let's get those added in. And I'll take these slices of brisket. That looks like a good portion. And there's going to be a little bit of fat in this, and that's completely typical of this cut. It is a rich cut. It requires a long braise. I'm going a little bit thinner than the noodles because I'm not putting as much of this meat in there. The broth and the noodles are going to be really noticeable for flavor. So there we are with the sliced brisket. Add that in. We've got the sauce getting started and pasta water. Real exciting stuff. Let's get that jammed up for temperature, and basically we're just going to be dropping those into the water, getting them to cook about 3 to 4 minutes. Fresh pasta doesn't need as long because the hydration is going to be a lot easier. I think I'm going to add a little bit of cream to what we've got going on here. Now, as it turns out at the moment, I haven't got a lot of fresh herbs. Natural choices for herbs here would certainly be fresh thyme. Some are savory. Those would be wonderful choices. I don't lean towards basil or oregano here. I think they're a little bit strong. Cilantro, coriander would be lost on this flavor profile. I think we're really good at this stage to actually just simply put some salt and pepper. Okay, we're starting to achieve a little bit of a tan coloration on this, and that's fine. It's about as far as I want it to go. Put the cream in there. Water is at the boil, so we're going to put the noodles in. Once the noodles get dropped, give it a stir so that everything doesn't get stuck to the bottom of your pot. Okay, the noodles, I've already taste tested them. We're good. I'm going to shut that water off, and I'm ready to remove the noodles. I gave a little test of the sauce. Love that I didn't hit it with a bunch of other herbs. The garlic is nice and subdued. The onions are sweet and aromatic. This little gem loves earthy tones. This is nutmeg. So what I'm going to do is just grate a little bit of nutmeg in there, and I'm going to give that a swirl to ensure that it's got good consistency. I'm happy with that. The salt and pepper are on point. I'm going to up that temperature, and what we want to see is a little bit of a boil start. There we go. A little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano. We're going to get that into the sauce, and in go the noodles. At this point, we're just talking about maybe 10-20 seconds. Burner is off now. Oh, wonderful. There we go. One thing that's a little bit of a trick is turn your hand over. How does this go again? Turn it over. Grab your pasta, give it a turn. Center over your plate, and just sort of release that. Try to, a little bit of a stacking effect is what we're doing here. Beautiful. Now this sauce, we're going to pour it over top. Catch the little bit of the toppings that are in there, so the onion, the garlic, the mushrooms, and the smoked brisket. And in a plate like this, you can actually call this a pasta bowl. We've got what's happening is a little bit of a pooling of the sauce around the bottom. If you're going for that wonderful presentation, I think we've achieved that. Looks really sharp. Really pleased with how that turned out. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a drizzle of olive oil. There's a nice fruity, peppery top note. A pinch more of the Parmigiano Reggiano, and a couple fresh grinds of pepper, and we're done. There you have it. Smoked brisket with black oyster mushrooms and fresh tagliatelle. Northern Ontario on a plate. Enjoy.